Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, January 9th, the ninth day of the year. And welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tom. As you can see, I am not in my familiar location, actually out on the road, staying in a hotel room. So that's why you have that beautiful background behind me. But either way, it's good to be back. It's also good to be able to take a break at the end of last year. I hope you got to take a break and rejuvenate and review, and that you've got a full tank for this new year. So, to all the people who sent us cards and emails and phone calls and love in whatever shape or form you sent it in, we appreciate it and we love you back. Moving into the new year, we plan on bringing you provocative shows that stimulate the brain, stimulate the imagination, and your thinking. We never tell you what to think. I never like to be told what to think, but provide me with information and I'll come to my own conclusions. And that's sort of our philosophy here on TWT. So let's rock and roll in our first live show of 2024. Today's show is a roundtable, so we look forward to catching up with Michael and Barbara and all of you in the chat, and going from there. So our show today, of course, is sponsored by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl customizes the solution that fits your needs. So let's get to the round table and get to Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Good morning, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm
Doing
doing
well.
good.
I hope you two are doing well also.
Doing great. Thank you.
I'm doing very well. I did have that crud for a little while after the holidays, but I'm over it and feeling good and looking forward to the year. So,
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Barbara, what's up with you? Tell me what's happening with you in your world.
Well, Tom, I'm on my way to Auburn today for the 60 years of integration celebration at Auburn, and then returning home and then heading back to Auburn on the weekend for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Upsilon chapter, my illustrious chapter at Auburn, will be celebrating our 50th year anniversary at Auburn University. So it's going to be a full weekend of activities. We're expecting over 300 of my beautiful sorors to join me there in Auburn, and looking forward to that great celebration.
And these are all people that went to Auburn.
These are all ladies who were initiated through the Kappa Upsilon chapter at Auburn University. That's correct.
That's great, though. Well,
Yes.
we wish you guys, hope you have a wonderful time and a lot of fun. And when is this? This is, matter of fact, we're going to have you guys on. Is that in a couple
January
of weeks?
23rd. Yes, a couple of weeks. We'll three of my sorors will be joining us on the show as our G-list guest, and we'll be talking about all the activities. And one of the youngest to ever be initiated through the chapter, Cynthia Anderson, will be joining us. She pledged at the tender age of 16, and she was on the charter line at Auburn. We were chartered January 12th, 1974 at Auburn, and so Cynthia will be joining us along with Winnie Frazier and Sonia Jenkins. So
you mentioned the commemoration ceremony today.
Yes.
When there was a ceremony last week commemorating Mr. Franklin, Harold Franklin, who was the first African-American student at Auburn University. His family was here, and today there is an even more of a commemoration or celebration on campus, and I'm going to be able. I have to participate. I don't have to, but they've asked me to participate in it, and I'm
Right.
looking forward to it. So I think the thing last week, the commemoration was. And a monument on the side of the library
Yes.
between Sanford Hall and the library, and it was very dignified. Mr. Franklin's son was there and grandson was there, and you just think about 1964 and walking across that campus.
Right. Alone. All alone.
Well, there were 99 police officers dispatched to campus that day.
Right.
But it was 6 months after George Wallace had stood in the door at the University of Alabama to block students from being admitted to the
Right.
University of Alabama. And then about 4 or 5 months after Dr. King, Martin Luther King, did his "I Have a Dream" speech in Washington. So it was a time. It was
Yes.
somewhat turbulent time. Auburn, unfortunately, was forced to integrate
Right.
after losing several court cases, and Mr. Franklin stepped in that situation, and what a situation to step into.
Absolutely. Was Attorney Gray at the event on
No,
last week?
he wasn't there last week.
Okay.
And I don't know if he'll be there today or not.
Right.
He was. I remember when they did the monument a few years ago. He was there,
Right. Yes.
and so maybe he'll be there today.
Today. Hopefully so.
Yeah. So, but President Roberts was the provost, Vinnie Nathan, and they were all. It was. I don't know why this is the word I use, but it was very dignified.
Wow.
It was
That's
very
great.
representative of the event that was being commemorated. So,
That's wonderful.
hopefully, and I feel like today will even be more so. I think yesterday the students started to come back from
Yes.
the holiday break. I met some people last night who were from Texas.
Okay.
Their daughter was here, is starting school here, and so
Wow.
they were excited, and I watched a little bit of the game with them last night.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
Michael, what's up with you, brother?
Oh man, I'm just happy to be here. As they used to say, it's good to be seen. So I'm being seen by both you and Barbara today, and happy to be here. It's interesting regarding Dr. Franklin being the first person of color to enroll at Auburn, and it was as a master's program. And I took some time and I read a little bit about the things that went on, and it's just it's kind of like it's very heartbreaking to imagine him having to go through all that in order to enroll, and then besides that, not having his thesis accepted to get his degree from Auburn.
Right.
And after so many times of preparing it and submitting it, and it was denied, but they never gave a reason why it was denied,
Right.
and I guess a twist of fate, back in not too long ago, they finally gave him his honorary doctorate degree, and
Not
accepted
just his honorary, they actually went back and reviewed his thesis again. Dr. A. Baer, who's been on our show, worked on that, and they actually reviewed his thesis again, and he actually was awarded his actual degree from Auburn. So yeah, they did give him honorary as well, but recently he actually, before he passed away, received his actual degree.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I was about to say.
Okay.
He got his degree, um, which he had earned several
Right.
years before, and at least he did receive that before he passed away. And
Yes.
ironically, he passed away a year after receiving that, after
Right.
so many years. So, um, I wonder what, if anything, the university has learned from that experience and the commemoration and all of this and celebrating, the 60 years since he was admitted. Did the university learn anything from that? And if so, will they carry it forward? That's where I am on this subject. It's great to commemorate and celebrate and say, hey, we finally did the right thing. As they say, it's never too late to do the right thing. But are you going to continue to do the right thing? That's my question.
Let me ask you a question, Michael, picking up on that. What would you like to see being done at the university?
Well, what I'd like to see being done, several fronts, is an intentional effort to expand the pool of people from underserved communities being accepted in Auburn. And when I say intentional, I mean actually go out with a plan to bring those underserved students that are qualified and give them an opportunity to come to Auburn. The other thing is I'd like to see an intentional effort to expand the opportunity for minority business people to participate in the economic engine that is Auburn University. Um, Whenever I come to town and I drive through campus of downtown Auburn, it is just booming. But you never see any minority businesses participating in that. So that's why I asked the question, what have we learned?
Okay. I agree with you regarding both on both fronts. Um, I last night I was down in the dining room bar area, and there a couple of ladies sat next to me, and they were from Texas, and they were bringing their daughter and granddaughter to at Auburn, and I don't know if she was new, like a freshman, or if she had been a previous student.
Right.
But they were so proud and they were so happy, and I think that why can't we do that for others?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
Particularly, and I agree with you about the business part of it. Being an independent business guy for 30 some years, and I know you are as well, Michael. You like to see the opportunities spread to others, and I think there is a much more of a willingness now. But I got to my room, and this magazine is what they put into your room,
Right.
and there is a article here on the Women's Philanthropy Board, and there's a photograph of, I don't know, man, maybe 30, 40, 50 women, and there's not one woman of color in that group.
Wow.
And you think, okay, but this is 2024.
Right.
How can you not consciously know that you're excluding individuals?
Right.
So I agree with you. Agree with you, man.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about we did the right thing or let's celebrate the first and do all this, but where the real rubber meets the road is moving forward and not repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And I just do not have a lot of confidence that we're there yet. And I think what you just mentioned, Tom, is, and what I said earlier, there has to be an intentional effort to do so. Uh, Without putting together a plan and, and being intentional about trying to accomplish that and include everyone, it just will not get done because there's not enough people that are of the underrepresented community in those decision-making positions. And unfortunately, sometimes when there is somebody from that group that's in there, they do not have the clout or the credibility in order to make a positive change. But that's one thing that I would encourage those of us that do have the opportunity to be in a position like that is to make sure that you speak up and push the issue. If you don't discuss it, nobody's ever going to talk about it.
And go ahead.
Well, and in many instances, it has to be those of us, the few that have been given the opportunity to be in some leadership position. It's up to us to bring it up.
Great.
It's and sometimes you're sitting there in a meeting, excuse me, and a subject arises where that is the issue. And you sit there and you wait for somebody to say something. And nobody says
You realize
anything.
that somebody is you.
Exactly. It's like, oh man, I got to do this again.
Again. Here we go. Yes.
But
that's my point. That's my point, man.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Yes.
I hope that we can move past that and
absolutely
move into there are some efforts. There's a group that I've been involved with called the Melton Scholars, and Michael Waller, who was on the show. And if you guys remember, Michael Waller made a statement. He's a white gentleman that he had been living overseas, and I think Indonesia or something like that. And that he made the statement on the show that he and his wife, when they would go to events over there, they would be the only person that looked like them in the room. And I made the comment. I said, I've never heard a white man say anything like that. And I certainly didn't mean it ugly, and meant it honorable more than anything. And that's just not the way we should have to live.
Right.
And I think when, unfortunately, we're still in a situation where we don't reach much beyond what's comfortable.
Right.
And hopefully we can get beyond that. I want to go back to Dr. Franklin for a minute. And we talked about, I always remember that photo of him walking across campus.
Yes.
And how lonely that photo looked. But I also, you remember reading about him, Michael, how he was placed in a wing of the dormitory by himself.
By himself, yes.
And
had a whole wing.
How could you expect somebody, what kind of college experience is that? And so I think we're very, very appreciative of this man.
Yes.
And what he contributed and what he gave.
And I got a chance to really talk to him, spend some time with Dr. Franklin before he passed away. And he was such an humble man. I mean, and he said, he just felt like that was his duty to do that. And he said things had to change. And if he had to be the one to initiate that change, then so be it. But he said it was a lonely experience. He said, but he was somewhat of a loner anyway, so it didn't bother him as much. But he can't imagine, what it would be like for someone who was really a social, outgoing person to be isolated that way. Be sit in a classroom and nobody wants to sit near you. Or of course, I experienced that myself as a child integrating elementary school. But it is a very lonely experience.
Yeah.
No one should have to go through that.
I think a lot about Henry Harris and James Owens,
Yes.
and I remember going to moving into the athletic dorm after they put me on scholarship, and what that experience was like. And James came a year before me. Henry came 2 years before me, and I could not have imagined being going through what either one of them went through.
Right.
Um, it was tough enough. Uh, I'd had a great integration experience in my high school. It
Mm,
was a true integration experience as opposed to a desegregation
right.
experience. And what's the difference? Well, the desegregation is okay, you had to desegregate, so we did that, and okay, you're here, so all right, that's it.
Right.
Integration experience is where you really get to have friends and you get to participate totally in the makeup of the institution that you're quote integrating. And I was able to have that experience in high school. Um,
That's a great distinction, Tom. You're absolutely correct. Yeah.
well, and I'll tell you this. My wife made that distinction for me,
Okay.
and I was telling her this past summer I got a call from a woman that I went to high school with, and she and three other women were going to be down where we live, and they wanted to know if I would have lunch with them.
Right.
Now, let me clarify: these were women who were just great, who were great friends. I shouldn't say just great friends; they're great friends. I never had any relationship in terms of man woman with them or anything like
Right.
that. But we had lunch that day, and I mean, we laughed and hooted and hollered, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I came home and I was telling my wife about it, and she made the comment. She said, you had a true integration experience at your high school,
Mm,
and your college experience was more of a desegregation
yes.
experience. And I had never thought of it like that, but that made a lot of sense. And
Yes.
that 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 meant the desegregation experience um, leaves quite a few scars.
Yes, it
And
does.
um, so yeah. Anyway, Michael Barber.
Yeah.
Uh,
I have a couple other things that I'd like to put on the table to discuss. Um, the first thing is not necessarily a pleasant topic, but it's something that we all need to be aware of and keep in mind of. Um, on New Year's Eve, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson passed away. She was
Mm,
at a rehabilitation center in North Dallas. It's called Baylor Scott and White Institute for Rehabilitation. She had undergone back surgery and she ended up getting a lethal infection while she was there. And that is the cause of her death. Her family
mm,
is in negotiations with the rehabilitation center. They have retained an attorney, Les Wiesbrod, who is a medical malpractice attorney. They have stated that the infection caused her death. Unfortunately, she spent over an hour lying in her own excrement, and
mm.
that's how the infection occurred. You know, I've always, and I shouldn't say but our family, whenever we had a loved one in the hospital, we always made sure that a family member was there in the room. I recall when my grandfather was in the hospital at East Alabama Medical Center there, I made sure that I was in the room, especially at night, and during those different times. And I made sure that the nurses and the doctors knew who I was, because I found at a young age that if you had a loved one in the hospital and they knew that they had a family that were concerned about their well-being, they got more attention.
True.
This is something that the attorney had mentioned, uh, in saying that, most times everybody will have a pleasant situation, but also it doesn't matter whether you were a congressperson or not, this could happen to you.
Mm.
She was there by
Mhm.
herself, had been calling out for nurses in pain, and nobody came. Her son, Kirk, was not there at the time, but he had left and he came back. And when he came back, he found his mother in this shocking condition.
Mm.
And he
Wow.
went straight to the hospital administrator or the CEO of the rehabilitation center, who walked with him. And then by the time they got back, the nurses were there trying to clean up, but it was too late.
Mm.
She ended up succumbing to the infection. So now there's a lawsuit. And maybe I should just say settlement negotiation. The hospital is trying to step up and they are trying to come up with a resolution. And they're saying some of it may involve her career. For those of you who don't know, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson was a nurse for many years
Wow.
there in Dallas before she ran for Congress.
Mm.
And she always focused on education. So they're talking about maybe putting together some type of settlement that will involve a foundation to help other families to promote good medical care, and to reach out for African American students going into the nursing and what have you. But she had mentioned to her son that they needed to pursue medical malpractice. And
Mm.
you can read, there's several stories about it. And it's just, I mean, it is really heartbreaking to think that here's a woman that spent a career in nursing and
Yes.
this led to her untimely demise
Yeah.
being
And
there.
Michael, I knew I've been sick and hadn't watched much news, but I have been sort of checking, the internet for news, and I hadn't seen anything on that. That is really sad story.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Her Dr. Woody said, and I quote, most of us will sleep in the room with a loved one or have someone in the family in the room with the loved one, he said.
Right.
Hmm.
It is important for family members to be the squeaky wheel. The
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
squeaky
very much
wheel
so.
gets the oil first.
Very much
That's
so.
so true.
Well, and what I'll comment on that and say that a couple of instances that we've had relatives there, the nurses, in my opinion, were overworked, trying to deal with more patients than one person could actually handle and deal with. And so you end up buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. And in what you're describing, Michael, you have to make a nuisance of yourself. You
Right.
have to say, hey, when I thought you were coming here 5 minutes ago, or whatever.
Right.
Both my parents passed and both passed at home.
Mm.
Um, you know, neither one wanted to go to the hospital.
Wow.
And I feel very comfortable in those decisions to not go. So I hear what you're saying, man. That's really crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Yeah. I had
is.
an experience similar, but not with the same end result when my grandfather was in the hospital. And, he was always my best friend. And unfortunately, he had a blood clot and had gotten gangrene and had to have he needed to have his leg amputated. But before we had done that, because we was trying to see if it was something else we could do about it, I was in the hospital late at night with him at 12, and he, a blood clot broke off and started to travel up his leg into his heart to send him into cardiac arrest. But I was there, and I was able to run out to the nurse's station, alert them that we had an issue, went back into it and started pulling the furniture out into the hall so they could get there with the electrodes. And they shocked him 3 times, and he came back after the 3rd time. And when he came back, he looked at me and said, "Michael, you're here." That right there meant everything to me, to see that smile on his face and to see that it was because of my efforts we still had it. And I will tell you that from that moment on, the doctors and everybody would consult with me before they did anything, and he received care. And I also had and then when they ended up doing the surgery, I was fortunate to have that one of the doctors on the team. He didn't perform the surgery because he knew our family so well. I grew up with him, but he was a vascular surgeon. We played basketball together. He said, "I don't want to do the surgery on your father because if something happened, I could never forgive myself. But my partner here is very good. I will be consulting with him, and we'll make sure that he has the best of care." But not everybody have those situations, you know. And thankfully, my grandfather lived for 18 months afterwards, that situation. So I can speak from firsthand experience. You got to be there. And I see some people in the chat that's talking about that and saying that they agree with that.
Very much so.
Yes.
Okay. Barbara, you got something else you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's several topics. First, congratulations to the University of Michigan in their NCAA championship win last night. Got NCAA CP on my mind. That was a great game. I don't know if you guys saw it, but the question is Jim Harbaugh leaving for the NFL? You know, there's a lot of discussion about him possibly leaving after winning the national championship. What do you guys think on that?
I think he would, you know, like given this year and what's happened, being suspended for a year, you know, being caught up in the controversial of sign stealing.
Yeah.
Let me ask, how did they tell me how they stole the signs?
Yeah,
I
they
don't
figure
get
out
that.
they stole signs, even if they did. How did that all come about? I still don't know the background.
Do you know how that worked, Michael?
Well, allegedly, this particular person that's on staff had been going to teams that were on their schedule that was coming up, going to games and stuff, and focusing on the signs that they are sending in and what have you, and kind of putting together, you know, part of the scout work and stuff. So you remember the New England Patriots were accused of setting up film and stuff, and they were stealing people's signals and stuff like that. So supposedly that's what happened. This particular staffer was let go once this came out, and he resigned as to not to distract. Harbaugh claimed that he was unaware of it. He got suspended for 3 games, I think. I think he got a total of 6-game suspension this year. I don't recall what the other was, but this particular staff person was terminated. And then there was some more controversy because he showed up at the playoff game, and somebody's mission like, "Dude, what are you thinking? What are you doing?"
You know, I find that interesting because back in my day, and I remember how our defense would call out their signals, and the signals were as simple as Roger and Leo. Well, if they said Roger, that means it was to the right. And if they said Leo, that meant it was to the left. Right. So after you call that out about 50 times a game,
People
I
gotta
don't think
know.
you got to spy to figure out.
So you don't
what
have to
the
steal
hell
that. Pretty obvious.
I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated than that, Tom, but I agree with you
Oh.
on that.
Ours wasn't. Let me say it. Roger, Leo. It's like, and I'll just tell you this one too, because we at one point we went to where we had offensive guards. I think we had 3 or 4 of them that were capable of being on the first team, at least 3 of them. So 2 of them would play, and they would use the other guy to run the plays out from the coaches to the huddle. We were in the huddle, and they gave this guy the play, and he starts running out on the field. And he gets halfway, and he stops.
He forgot.
And looks back at the he forgot the play.
Oh my goodness.
So we had to use up all the timeouts just to get the play in. You know? So
wrong person running the play in.
Yes, it was.
Oh wow.
You know, it's interesting that in the playoffs, and I know in some of the bowl games, teams were given the opportunity to have speakers and microphones in the quarterback's helmet and some of the players' helmet in order to communicate the plays and stuff. And I think they're going to go to that. Coach Hugh Freeze of Auburn decided he did not want to have that. I know Maryland did. Perhaps he should have rethought that.
Perhaps.
The way things turned out, you know.
Yes.
At least for none other than to talk to the quarterback and tell him stop screwing up. You know? I think I probably would have been utilizing it for that.
Come out. Let us put somebody else in. That should have been the message.
But Barbara, since you brought up football. My favorite senator, Tommy T. Tuberville. He got beat 0-436. Now that's a beat down.
That's a beat down, really.
He got a beat down in Senate. You remember that? That thing he was doing where he was holding up military promotions and all of that.
Yes.
Well, during the holidays, they voted on that, and he didn't get one vote. Everybody voted in favor of going forward with the military promotions and stuff. And that was a bipartisan vote right there. He didn't even get Republican votes. Okay.
That tells you a lot.
The score was 0-436.
He said that he finally conceded because he didn't think he could win. Well, everybody could have told you wasn't going to win when you start.
Right. Oh, Tommy T.
Yeah, Tommy T. Oh, man. I thought Michigan pretty much just dominated last night. And I think they basically showed that their win over Alabama was not a freak win.
Right.
They were maybe the better team. And, I mean, when they dominate the line of scrimmage in both games. When they snapped that ball, either Alabama or Washington, when they snapped that ball on offense, Michigan defense was all over it. And
right.
One thing, man, I tell you what, those guys from Michigan tackle. You didn't have any missed tackles. You didn't have many yards after the catch and all that. They caught the ball, boom.
Yeah, they were right there.
You know.
Yes.
So.
Well, Tom, if you know what the play is, they're running from side, so it's easy to be all over.
I saw that the coach's brother was there. You know, he coaches the Ravens.
Right.
And Dixon, our son, and I, we went to see the Ravens in Jacksonville over the holidays. Man, the Ravens, God, they travel. Half that stadium was probably full of Ravens fans.
Wow.
And boy, they sing and they dance and they stand up and they do all kind of. I hadn't been to an NFL game in a long time. And it was as cold as it was. It was cold. It was a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
so Dixon, our son, I know he's excited about the Ravens going forward, and they're what, number one in their division, I
The
think, as
division.
far as the
Mhm.
playoffs go.
Yeah, they're number one seed in the AFC, and I think they are number one overall,
Right.
including NFC, with the best record. You know,
I'm proud of
uh,
Lamar Jackson. He's had a phenomenal year.
Well, I
well,
know, they gave him a hard time when he came up because he ran the
Mhm.
ball.
Yes.
And now you see more and more quarterbacks running the ball. But I tell
Mhm.
you what, watching Lamar play person, he not only he ran the ball, but he ran it and smartly, I guess.
Right.
He got what he could get, and then he ran out of bounds, or he
Right.
would slide. And man, he throws a good ball, and I'm looking forward to seeing them go further
Yes.
yeah,
playoffs.
but, you know, when he came out of Louisville, Bill Polian, who used to be the general manager in Indianapolis Colts, said he needed to change position and be a
Yeah.
wide receiver, that
Yeah.
he would never make it. And he may end up winning his second MVP of the
Yeah,
league this year.
Yes.
You
yeah.
know, I'm just saying. Joyce put in the chat, had we seen those new helmets designed by AT&T for the deaf or hearing impaired for players to utilize in playing football? And yes, I have seen it. I think that's pretty cool. It's the AT&T has been working on some type of helmet where it's they have the speakers and stuff in the helmet, and then they even have something over to help one person that does not see
Vision.
clearly, you
Right.
know, and helps them to be able to see. Because, you know, sometimes you remember back in the daytime when we're playing basketball or football, you see guys with goggles on and stuff. You
Right.
know, at one time they were to protect your eyes, to keep people from gouging you in the eyes and stuff, but also for people that wore glasses and contacts, they had these design goggles so they can see. So AT&T has kind of stepped that up because they have this one guy's helmet. The commercial will show the things look a little bit blurry and stuff, and the coach
Right.
saying that's not your fault and what have you. And then he looks at this helmet and it has a glass that you can see out of that, plus the hearing thing. So, you know, it's interesting to see how technology coming around. I just can't figure out how they can't make a helmet that will protect the brain and bruising of
Yes.
the brain so we can
That,
get rid of the CTE.
that's got to be next. I
Yes.
talked to a woman over the holidays, and she mentioned at least 8 guys that I know that I was behind them
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years or so, but who had CTE, who has CTE, and yeah, I agree with you.
Right.
There has to be something done about that. You know, you're talking about the glasses. You remember I don't know if you guys remember in high school how they used to wear those real thick glasses. See, we we had a guy who played quarterback for us in high school, and I was the receiver, and he would go back to pass, and he'd be tweaked. And I went. I said, "Coach, he can't see. How can he throw a pass?"
He was squinting.
Yeah, he's doing this. And I still see him, and he lives in Birmingham. I'm not gonna tell you who he is, but I always kid him about that, you know. And he laughs. We both get a big laugh out of it.
Wow.
So, let me ask you guys. Let's see, where am I? So I understand that the both of you are going to be guest coaches for the women's basketball team at Auburn.
Yes, we are. I'm excited about that. That game is this Sunday at 2 p.m. Auburn women will be playing LSU for the national reigning champions, and Angel. What's her last name? Angel Reese.
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 Yeah, will be there. So it should be a fun game, and hopefully everybody can come out. Tickets are still available for that game. It's going to be in Auburn. Looking forward to that.
All right, well, that sounds good. I think it should be a lot of fun. Has LSU gotten off to a good start this year?
Yes, they have. I think they've lost one game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they lost their
Early
first
on.
game to an
Right.
also ran, but I think they're ranked number 7th or higher now.
Right.
And how is Auburn doing?
Auburn's was doing pretty well. I think they've lost their last 2 games, but prior to that, they were looking pretty good. Even those games they've lost, I think one of them was pretty close. So
they lost to Tennessee by 8 points, and most recently lost to Texas A&M. But they're a lot more competitive this year than they were before.
You mean they're actually running the play that the coaches call?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let's see. What else you guys got? We got a few more minutes here.
Okay, I have something that I think is pretty interesting. Yesterday at 2 a.m., a rocket lift off headed to the moon. It's a commercial rocket, and it is taking the remains of 330 people to go and have a permanent memorial on the moon and in outer space. Among the dignitaries' remains are George Washington, John Kennedy, and Dwight Eisenhower is on there. Also, several members of the original cast of Star Trek. And so it's their cremated remains. Some donor donated hair from John Kennedy and George Washington and Dwight. But, Dwight didn't have a lot of hair. I don't know how much they were able to do that. But anyway, according to this, they did do that and sent off, and other people are doing it that are really into space and what have you. So I find that interesting. I read this morning they had a little bit of issue with it, but what they're supposed to do is go to the moon, and they're in these capsules. It's like a 6 foot by 8 foot type of capsule that they would leave there on the moon with their remains, and then take the rest of them and go another 180 something miles out into space and drop those off and come back. And they're supposed to be able to complete that voyage by the 23rd, I think, of next month, 23rd or 28th.
And this is a commercial thing?
Yes, commercial. Yes, it is a commercial endeavor.
Who's paying for this?
I'm sorry?
Who's paying for this?
The government, because it's joint with NASA. So I'm sure the government's paying for it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. It's Celestis Inc. Inaugural Enterprise flight. And it was scheduled to launch at 2:18 yesterday morning from Cape Canaveral in Florida. And it did take off. So I find that pretty interesting.
You remember when the first, quote, men went to the moon? And I don't know how it was in your neighborhoods, but how the older people would say that was just something they were doing on television, that they weren't really going to the moon. And I remember Mr. Burke, he said, Tommy, they all called Tommy, don't you believe that now? They ain't going to no moon. That's just something they're doing on television. I said, okay, Mr. Burke. Let's let Sean come in, and we'll come back and wrap out. Sean, you got a minute for us?
Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Capricorn season is live and in full effect. Capricorns are known to be extremely hardworking visionaries, leaders, and trailblazers. This month is critical for asking the right questions to help you find facts that will get you much further along with your goals this year. This might seem obvious, but you haven't been talking to the right people who can give you the real information that you need. It's time to step out of your safe circle and start trying to expand your network a little more aggressively. Start rubbing elbows with people who are not only fun to be around, but also influential and connected. So, in the meantime and in between time, I hope everyone has an amazing year. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
All right. Okay. We've got, let's see, about less than 10 more minutes. So, anybody got anything else they want to talk about?
I was going
Bring
to
it up.
ask you all if you all saw that interview or conversation that Shannon Sharp had with Cat Williams. That 3 hour long.
No, I
Have
did.
you watched Club Shay Shay? Shannon
No.
Sharp does his show, a podcast or a show called Club Shay Shay, and he brings all these um, dignitaries and interesting people, people or athletes and entertainers on. And he interviewed Cat, or had a discussion. He said he doesn't interview anyone. Had a discussion with Cat Williams on this past week, and in 5 days, this thing on YouTube has had over 37 million views. Cat Williams went in on every comedian. Uh, he talked about everybody. You have to go in and watch some snippets of the show because it is entertaining, to say the least, but very interesting. But yeah, everybody's watching it. Everybody's talking about it all over social media. Got to check it out.
Okay. I have not. I have not.
No, I have not seen it. I've just read some headlines about what Cat Williams said, with Shannon Sharp, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
delve too much in it because, Cat Williams was, I think he's from Gainesville, Georgia, or somewhere up here. He lived up there, and he was doing a bunch of crazy stuff. So I figured I wouldn't waste my brain power on seeing what he had to say.
Well, it's really interesting. He talks about how he was really a childhood genius, and at the age of 7, he was reading 3,000 books a year, and he his IQ is really high. So he comes across as being this really dumb, stupid comedian thing, but young man is really smart. I call him a young man. He's younger than me, but he really is smart. But he's funny as well. But some of the things he talked about in this conversation with Shannon is believable, and other things is like, oh, that's really far fetched.
What kind of stuff was he talking about?
Well, he talks about he goes in on some of these comedians and says that they have put themselves on this platter and saying that they are great and wonderful, and he shoots them down real quick and said they're really not that good. And he talks about some instances where they were on shows together and he beat them, but he talks about him reading 3,000 books a year as a young child, and he speaks like 4 or 5 different languages, and he runs I think a 4.3 100-yard dash or something. I mean, it's it's far-fetched. And he talks about he can play all kinds of sports, and he smokes weed and cigarettes. He's been in jail, I think, 30 times, and you really have to watch it to get all the information, but it's entertaining.
It sound to me that he may be suffering from ADD, attention deficit disorder, and
or
maybe
look at me disorder. I don't know. I think, go ahead.
Either that, he has a very profound imagination.
I think a vivid imagination. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Some people are saying, some of what he's saying is true, and very few of the people he talked about has come back and debunked what he's saying. So maybe there is some truth to it. I think Ricky Smiley and Cedric the Entertainer and some other Ludacris have come out and with some responses to some of the things he's saying, but very few of them have said that it's not true. They give further explanation on some of the topics. So It's like I said, it's really interesting. It's created a lot of controversy and a lot of discussions on social media. I usually don't sit still that long enough to watch something like that, but I was in bed recovering from the flu for a week, and so it was entertaining to me to just pull it up on my phone and just sit there and watch it. But yeah, it's
I saw where somebody made some comments about Taylor Swift,
mm.
about her sexuality.
Oh, really? No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it was in the New York Times, I think.
Okay.
But, I mean, who cares? Whatever
Yeah.
sexuality is. She's a successful woman.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, I could leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, former president, he is doing everything he can to stay on the ballots in these different states. There was a judge that spoke over the weekend that said the Constitution is clear about what should be happening in this situation, given what he did. However, they're gonna probably submit it to the Supreme Court as to whether or not he's on the ballot or not. And the judge said the Supreme Court will be doing everything they can to avoid having to make a decision on it, but that the Constitution is clear. In the meantime, one of his supporters has filed a lawsuit against the district attorney here in Atlanta, Fonnie Willis, and saying that she was having a romantic relationship with the lead prosecutor on the Trump case here in Georgia, and that it should be dismissed because she hired this guy and is paying him, and then he was taking the money that he was paid, and they've been off on lavish trips and what have you, and carrying on a romantic affair. So that should disqualify them from prosecuting Trump and his supporters, and the cases should be dismissed. So that's all ablaze here in Atlanta and in the news, and supposedly they're going to respond to that. So I find that interesting. I wonder how they find out if it's true. How did they find out that this was going on? I really, I don't think. I would think that she's probably a lot smarter than that, but
well, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. They're just going to keep spreading it.
That's right.
Even if it's not true.
Right.
And I agree with you. I hope she's smarter than that. I don't know. Is this guy ever going to go away? God almighty, I'm tired of him. I swear.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about this is that his supporters and people, they can see anything that may appear to be a conflict of interest, but they totally turn a blind eye to what the former president himself did, where he had the FBI stay in his hotels wherever he traveled and charged the government for that. Right. When foreign dignitaries came over from China and wherever, while he was in office, they had to stay in his hotel. Mm-hmm. There was something that just came out where he made about $7 or $8 million off of some people from China and other places that came and they had to stay in his hotels. So if that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is.
Right.
But they somehow turn a blind eye to that. That's okay, but nobody else can. It's no wonder we can't get anything done in this country from a political standpoint in Washington, because it's totally dysfunctional.
Yes.
And he appointed 3 of the people on the Supreme Court or what have you.
Right.
And so, and the Supreme Court has been accused of being political. Mm-hmm. And so now they've been put in a position to make a decision that ought to be clear cut, but we'll see how that goes. I just I just wish he'd go away.
We all
But
do.
I don't think that's gonna happen. So
Not
we'll
right
go
now,
from
anyway.
there. So let's you guys got anything else? I think we've about run out of time. So okay, well let's move forward. Next week, our guest will be, I think it's Maurice Hobson, who is a historian from Georgia, and he will talk about MLK Day. And we look forward to having him on. So my closing comments, or as I see it, I hope you're looking forward to having a happy, healthy, and successful year. Rejoice, rejuvenate, rewards, and blessings to all. And that's how I see it on this 9th day of January in the year 2024. That's our show for today. We want to thank the audience for being with us. We appreciate you as always. Thank our G-list guest, who we didn't have one today. It was a round table, and we appreciate that. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, Michael, and Joyce. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted, and if you got an extra one, give one to someone else. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.